Hello BookTube, Books with Banks back again with another video, an exciting one for y'all today. This will be a review of sorts, but instead of sci-fi fantasy novels, today I'm reviewing a book of poetry. This is very new to me and very exciting. So I'll be going over my general thoughts and reactions to Bryan Dietrich's Single Bound, collecting two smaller character-specific collections of poems. Before going too far into it though, if you haven't already, it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe, and please comment below if you have other fantasy sci-fi poetry that you've heard of or that maybe you're more familiar with that you might be a really big fan of. Anyway, let's get into it. So what is this collection all about? So the first half consists of Krypton Nights, several poems ranging across a variety of styles and types of poem, and written from the perspectives or in the voices of various characters in the Superman canon. The second half consists of Amazon Days, several poems ranging across a variety of styles and types of poem, written from the perspectives and the voices of various characters in the Wonder Woman canon. But I do think it's important to note here that these were written much later than the Krypton Nights collection, and I believe Mr. Dietrich has actually also written an academic analysis of the Wonder Woman character, and so if I understand that correctly, I mean, you can definitely tell that really bleeds through here, his sort of academic understanding of and like research into her character. Many of these poems are tied to the history of the character, how feminine and or masculine she's been portrayed at different times, and a lot of my favorites from these poems really dive into the idea of the like goddess as hero idea versus the goddess as sex icon idea, and where that line blurs with the main character, with the main superhero character of Wonder Woman. So I'm not really sure the best way to review a collection of poems like this, but let's say we'll go, like, if I were just going with a simple star rating, I might personally give this like a 4 out of 5 stars, something like that. Maybe that would go to like 5 out of 5 if I was better trained at reading and interpreting poetry. Don't get me wrong, I love the book, but at times I found like meaning a little bit difficult to discern. Again, that's probably more from my lack of experience with this style of writing than from any failing on the part of Dietrich. That's the only real kind of negative that I have, and it's not really that much of a negative. It's just a lack of experience on my part. So I do want to talk about 3 positive aspects of the book now, and these 3 reasons are all reasons why I think I would highly recommend this to anyone interested in deeper explorations of superhero characters. So number 1, I feel like Dietrich actually took the time to think about these characters seriously, and he took the characters seriously. Wonder Woman in particular, I feel like these characters dominate so much of pop culture that it can be easy to, you know, make jokes and to treat them kind of as the cartoons that they literally started off as, but to treat them in a cartoonish way, I think we see that happening a lot. In other words, I'm glad that the Superman poems in here aren't just poking fun at how invincible he is or how self-righteous he can be. If those common jokes or views are mentioned, Dietrich really uses the various perspectives, telling and viewpoints, writing the different poems to respond to those common views and make both characters seem, I think, a little bit more human, less alien, less goddess. I actually think this type of adaptation, if you will, takes these characters a lot more seriously than the recent like films do. Like, let's say with all of this new like revamped DC stuff that James Gunn's doing, if Gunn wanted to put a quote or reference or use this as source material to inspire more mature and more compelling interpretations of these characters, I would not be mad about that at all. Gunn would earn a lot of respect from me, and I'd have a lot more faith in the direction of that cinematic universe. That's how good these poems are. I think they absolutely should be used to help, I don't know, continue, or to help keep the conversation around these heroes more sophisticated. Then, number two, very early on with this collection, I realized I needed to slow down. Now, I'm not a fast reader of prose or anything like that in the first place, but I realized with this in particular, I had to really take it even slower to appreciate the clever wordplay and try to think more deeply about each line, each stanza, or each poem before moving on to the next. This book showcases several really neat tricks and techniques that poets can use. Now, these things might seem more commonplace to those of you more familiar with poetry, but I personally found it a fascinating learning experience. For example, each superhero section starts off with a series of 7 sonnets, and the last line of each sonnet is repeated either exactly or pretty closely at the beginning of the next sonnet, and often the new context of what comes after totally changes the impact of that one line compared to everything that led up to that line in the previous sonnet. That's just one example of how creative how creative poetry can be, and how Dietrich used this really creative technique to link these poems but also move from one point to the next. Just one example of really cool stuff that he did in this book. And then the third thing I want to talk about, last but not least, and I kind of want to argue against myself a little bit here. In my first point above, I said how Dietrich goes to great lengths to make these characters seem grounded and more human. I think he also doesn't shy away from how ridiculously sci-fi and fantasy these heroes actually are. While the characters themselves are coming to grips with living with humanity, Dietrich puts on full display throughout these poems how their alien nature or goddess nature really make them exceptional, and not always in a good way. Where superhero adaptations sometimes, I think, recently are really trying to make things more grounded, maybe someone giving us a movie that's supposed to be like the most realistic Wonder Woman. Dietrich, on the other hand, goes the other way, and he really leans into the fantasy elements of both characters. Anyway, those are just a few of my general thoughts on this collection. I really encourage anyone with even a passing interest in Superman or Wonder Woman to pick up this collection and give it a try. Again, this is Single Bound by Bryan Dietrich. I loved this book, and I'm really excited to dive into not only more poetry, but more specifically the works of Bryan Dietrich. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye.